Hey there guys, I'm Renee. I am the owner and artist behind Chicly Reclaimed Decor, and in today's tutorial for Paint Couture Paint, I'm going to be sharing with you how to transform this deer skull into a piece of magical and ethereal decorative home decor just in time for the spooky season. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. So before I even started this project, I made sure to clean it thoroughly, and I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Premium Plus 2-in-1 primer in the color white, and I'm also going to be using their 2-inch angled long synthetic brush. I like to keep it in the container that it comes in because it keeps my bristles nice and together and still in good working order. One thing that I really like about this primer is that it has a good thick consistency to it and it's not runny at all, which is going to help when I am loading my paintbrush, which I'm doing here, but I'm making sure not to overload it. That way I can get nice thin layers of primer on there and I won't have to worry about drips. Now that our item is all primed, we're going to let this dry and then we're ready to paint. I'm going to be using Candlelight by Paint Couture. I love this color because it's an off-white color that's heavy on the warm tones. And before you start painting, you always want to make sure to stir your paint thoroughly first. Paint Couture paint is a water-based acrylic paint that has a built-in top coat already added to it. So you want to make sure to stir it up thoroughly before you start your project. And then the same rule of thumb applies here. Don't overload your paintbrush. That way you have more control over your paint and you're also less likely to have any drips. Okay, so now the really fun part begins, designing. We're going to be using I Flex Wood Moulds. These are a wood composite that are paintable, stainable, and sandable. I love how detailed they are. And then I'm going to be using AB Studios Rice Decoupage paper number 0123. But before I start actually gluing any molds down or laying down this decoupage paper, I'm going to come up with a game plan because the idea that I have in mind for this piece is layering decoupage paper with I Flex Wood Moulds over top, and this will allow me to know which steps I have to do first, as well as providing me a point of reference for my design. These designs come on a whole sheet of rice paper like this, and now I'm going to show you how I remove them. So if you have a water pen, that's great, but if not, just use some water and a wet paintbrush. And you're just simply going to trace around the edge of the design that you want to take off the paper. Now I'm very carefully going to tear the design from the rest of the rice paper. And because it's wet, it should tear pretty clean and easily, as well as giving it a nice feathered edge, which will help the design blend in better on your painted piece. Now that I have a pretty good idea as to where the decoupage designs are going to go, I'm going to start with my I Flex Wood Moulds and just kind of play around and see where I like these molds the best. Okay, now that we have a design in mind, we can start laying everything down. I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Decoupage Medium in Matte to adhere my decoupage paper. I'm going to start working from the top down, making sure that this wreath is centered on the top of the skull. Then using my finger to hold the paper in place, I'm going to work section by section, brushing the decoupage medium under the skull on one half, then on the other half, and I finish off by brushing over the entire design, making sure there are no air bubbles. Then I'm going to continue that same process for the rest of the designs. Okay, so now that our decoupage designs are all down, it's time to move on to the molds. I'm going to be using I Flex Wood Moulds. These are a wood composite that when heated up become bendable, making them that much easier to contour to any curved surface that you're working with. Using a heat gun on a low setting, I am going to slowly heat up my mold. I'm going to make sure to move back and forth and to not get too close to the mold because, like I said, these are made from wood and they can burn. You're going to continue doing this until you can start to see that the mold has a little bit of give to it. As you can see, once heated, it is plenty flexible, hence the name iFlex. And I'm gonna take that mold while it's warm and I'm gonna put it on the skull and just push it down and contour it to all the little curves in this skull. Then I'm gonna sit and hold this mold in place until it cools back down. And I'm doing this because, as you can see, once it has cooled down and you lift it off, it's now pre-shaped to the curves in the skull, which is going to make it that much easier when you go to glue down this mold. Okay, so now that my molds are all ready to go, I'm going to start painting them. Once again, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Candlelight color. Now that our molds are all ready to go, we need to adhere them to the skull. I like to use Titebond Quick and Thick, and I put a thin layer on the back of my mold and then I brush it out so it's even. And then because it's already pre-shaped, I can just simply press it onto my skull, and if there's leftover glue drips, I just wipe them away with a wet paint brush. And then I'm simply going to continue doing that for the rest of my molds. Next up, I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Venetian Bronze, which is part of their new Lux Metallics. I really like this metallic because it kind of has a hint of golden shimmer. So what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be using it as a glaze to bring out all the beautiful details in these I Flex Wood Moulds. I'm going to take a small artisan paintbrush and simply dab the top of these molds, making sure to get into the small, intricate carved details. Then when I'm done with that step, I'm going to use a rag to wipe back the excess paint on top to reveal all the beautiful carved wooden details. And then I'm just going to continue that process with the rest of the molds. Next up, we're going to be doing some detail work with Paint Couture's Pale Gold. This is part of their original metallic paint line, and you do need to be sure to mix it very well because it does have actual minerals in it. When it's all mixed, it should have a nice, even, consistent sheen. I'm going to be dry brushing the molds, so I'm going to simply wipe off any excess paint that is on my paintbrush because that is the secret to dry brushing. You cannot have an overloaded paintbrush. And then I'm going to come through and I'm just going to lightly brush the top of these molds to bring out even more of the details. Then I'm going to come through and just add some golden details around the skull's eyes and other areas. And that includes giving this guy a golden set of horns. I did 2 coats of pale gold on the horns. That way I could get that brilliant, rich gold color that I was going for. And last but never least, I'm going to use Paint Couture's Extreme Guard Topcoat and Gloss to seal and protect this paint and design for many more years to come. And here's a peek at the finished design, all decked out and ready to impress your spooktacular Halloween guests this season. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm Renee, the owner and artist of Chicly Reclaimed Decor. Be sure to follow me for more furniture flips as well as painting tips. And be sure to like, comment, and definitely subscribe for more painting tutorials using Paint Couture Paint.